Mama, I got bad news, bad news. I've been rolling with some bad dudes, bad dudes. I've been trying to get a bag too.
Hello, listeners. Welcome to the Ashes to Awesome podcast, Rising in Recovery. Our podcast provides light, hope, and understanding about addiction and mental health to those living within that life and the people who love them. This episode is brought to you by Together We Can, where Canada recovers from addiction. That's twcrecoverylife.org. Hello, everybody, watchers, listeners, supporters. Welcome to another episode of Kaleidoscope Wednesday on the Ashes to Awesome podcast. I'm your host, Chuck LaFLange, and with me in virtual studio, of course, is Ryan Bathgate. How you doing today, Ryan?
Chuck, I'm well rested. I got a little bit sick over the long weekend. Was down for about 3 days with the flu, and being sick sucks. I mean, you know, as soon as the kids hit the elementary school in that petri dish, it's just like,
you mean petri dish, right?
You know, and so like it ran through the house last week, and everybody got sick but me.
Oh, okay.
And then so then I was talking to my boss, and he was like, "Oh yeah. So I guess you'll be sick next week." And I'm like, "Dude, that's like saying shut out to your goalie when he's not letting any goals in, and there's 5 minutes left." You know, like, what are you doing? And sure enough.
Yeah.
I spent right. So it was a Sunday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. I had off. Yeah, I was sick Sunday, Monday, and yesterday. Missed work.
Oh, dear.
So that's why we're getting into this in the
later
12th hour. Yeah.
Right.
I do want to address last week.
Okay. Cool.
As relative to how I'm doing, I always feel remiss when we don't get an episode out. But you know, like the way of the world, man. I mean, you know, or what's the old saying? Not that I'm a religious man, but you want to hear God laugh, tell him what your plans are. You know?
Yeah. You want to make God laugh, make plans. Yeah. I say that one all the time. Yeah.
Right. So like, you know, it's just kind of the way things go. And I know, you had some stuff going on your end, and timing on my end wasn't great. So it's just, so I do want to apologize to the listeners. I know I got some feedback on social media about when the show's coming out, and the reality is it's today. A week later. I did go and get myself a new mic. Yeah.
Hey, hopefully that's coming clear to the listeners. Well, here's the thing though: when you have great equipment, they're not supposed to notice, right? So it's one of those, you know.
But I didn't have great equipment. That's how we know.
Right.
Yeah.
So hopefully that's coming. Yeah.
Other than that, I'm pretty good, man. I mean, you got a lot going on, with the Ashes to Awesome Network, and we got stuff. You know, the book is cooking along, and then everyday life and counseling and doing a job and raising kids.
Yeah, right. So
I think it's time for the winter beard to start. So I've stopped shaving and trimming for the old Paul Bunyan look.
Yeah. Well, you're rocking the plaid today, so
Well, this is pretty much the uniform all winter.
Yeah, all winter if you want to call it that out there. But who am I to complain, right? With my upcoming, So, and let's speak to that real quick too. Last week, things kind of blew up in my world, and well. We've made the best of the situation, and I'm off to Thailand. So,
exciting!
Yeah, in less than a month's time, I'll be, hosting from Thailand, right? But also, the main purpose to go, or the original kind of purpose to go, is so that I can address some of my own trauma issues, and go visit Mike at the Auto Treatment Center and get some treatment for those things, right? So I'm pretty excited for all of the above, right? All of the above. So,
and on that note, Mike's such a good dude. Like, what he's doing, the amount of scholarships that he gives out. Like, he's a guy much like Devin, who. It's really easy to see the guys doing this for the right reason, and really easy to see the guys doing it for the wrong reason.
Sure is.
Mike is one of those guys doing it for the right reason.
Without a shadow of a doubt.
Not to mention his skill set is out of this world. I'm at awe and at times in envy of his abilities. So
right.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's an exciting thing. And I guess, I'll mention too, I do have a GoFundMe going. I'm trying to get a laptop up and going. So anybody that's watching this, it's in the show notes. If you can help out, it'd be much appreciated for that. I recently switched to a desktop, but my laptop crapped out on me, and I can't take it with me. It's just too big and too much to bring in a suitcase with me, right?
Yeah.
So I do have to switch over to a laptop, and and of course a little bit of an emergency fund. As it stands, I kind of rely on my family for a lot of my essential needs, month to month. So there's really no extra room, but
and there's as we know and as we're learning, it's this is a hobby of passion, and it's a really difficult one to turn into a hobby, a livelihood of passion.
Yeah. Certainly no Lamborghinis or business class tickets being tossed around. That's for certain, right? So yeah, right.
No, but the proof is in the pudding, as they say. I'm sure you get as many as I do of the amount of thank yous and gratitudes that come our way for being able to help people along the way. Just with some sage advice or a better understanding of mental health and substance use in general.
Absolutely, right? Absolutely, yeah.
We make these commitments, and it's not blind. There's a good idea that I knew going into this that I wasn't going to be hitting the Forbes top 500 or 100 companies, And my idea here was just, I just to sustain a family and provide a livelihood while maintaining an impact in helping people get through these difficult times, especially in the middle of a opioid crisis. And I think we have this year crossed 1,600 fatalities in British Columbia.
Wow.
And that is, it's almost such a large number that it almost desensitizes it,
right.
Yeah, like you hear
those are war deaths, right? Those are wartime deaths is what that is, right? And it's easy to now you just kind of attribute that to this big thing that's happening and maybe, like you said, desensitized to it, right?
Yeah,
like you would about a war, right? So
if you to me the solutions are so radical that I just don't see any government willing to get behind it, which is exactly what needs to happen. Yeah. And then, then there's the moral model stigma that is just so alive and well.
Man. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And the amount of time I spend on the phone with families, just not having a clue what to do and being afraid is, I'm going to say, maybe I need to look at that being billable or something, because there's a lot of time I spend, going between places, talking on phones and trying to help families understand what they're going through, because nobody knows if they're doing something wrong or they're doing something right. And it's such a sensitive and deeply painful process,
an individual one to boot, right?
Yes, right? And that is probably something we're going to talk about as the show goes on, but. They so afraid to make the wrong move, right. And getting advice from people that, to be frank, have no place giving advice in these things. Because what I hear is cut them loose.
Yeah, right. Man, don't even get me. Ooh, right? Yeah, I get pretty passionate about that stuff, right? As you well know, right.
To be honest with you, that's 9 times out of 10. That's the advice that people are getting from people that don't understand.
Absolutely it is, right? And it's because they don't understand. And they don't. I've been there. I've done that. I've had a loved one. Okay, maybe you did, and maybe you were, but that was at a different time. Right? That wasn't when death was, because now, let's be honest, when you wait for someone to hit the rock bottom, they die. That is our new reality, right?
Yeah, there's a really interesting book written by William Burroughs, who's part of that beatnik generation. It's called Junkie, and it's about opium addiction or opiate addiction in the 1940s.
Yeah.
And in that book, it really portrays, it was a different hustle. In those days, they hustled for scripts from old doctors that just would hand scripts out, and they would, because there was no system, they would just go doctor to doctor to doctor and get their morphine at the time. But when you go down to the Skid Row, it speaks to, there was no drugs down there. It was all guys drinking port wine.
Yeah.
And that was, and then you go you go look down at down at Hastings, or even where I am here in Mission, there's no alcoholics, man.
No, there
It's
isn't. Right.
it's fentanyl, it's meth,
Yeah.
and it's what was that new on the street? Now I shouldn't say it's new, but anyway, now there's a new one called
the
they call
tranks or the
everything's got benzos in it now, and it's just like
xylazine.
there's a new thing called
like
pink heroin that's
okay.
killing people. So, not heroin, for the record. It's fentanyl.
Yeah, it's fentanyl. Yeah.
But I mean, it's like that. Like that movie, American Gangster, the Blue Magic. You just give it a name, and people
branding
market it. So,
yeah, right.
So I mean, I guess really what we could get into is talking about how big of a impact stigma is transgenerationally. And what I mean by that is from generation to generation, we pass on these things. And it's often like the same thing I talk about all the time about, like, have we stopped to question our own definitions of the way we see the world? Like, I'm talking to you with headphones and a mic. Now, I consciously have made a decision to define a headphone as a listening apparatus that I put around my ears, and a mic is something that I talk into. I could call it a polo stick and an ottoman, but then I got to get into every time. I call it this because I have freedom of choice. I'm not going to do that every time. But it is like how for forever I thought what being a man was working hard, playing hard, and effing hard. But that's something I picked up through transgenerational programming of my father and my father's father, and on and on and on, which really came from an agriculture era where they didn't have time for feelings.
Right.
So and I think that the moral model comes from that, and we see it especially in mostly like the people who are outside of it, who haven't lived with it and don't know what to do, or they come from, like, I get a lot of this is like the father doesn't want nothing to do with the son or daughter because they are substance use disorder people.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And then the mother having to navigate in between that because they want a deeper understanding but have no idea what to do. They know that it's the right way isn't to cut them out like the father does, but they don't know how to attend to this individual. And so
I would say every single Family Friday that we've recorded, that is the tone. That is the dynamic, right? And you throw in stepfather, and that just that only amplifies everything you're saying right now, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So why don't we just look at let's look at the literal definition of stigma.
Feelings are like waves. All feelings, positive or negative, have a beginning, a middle, and an end, regardless of how long they have. They also rise and fall, only to rise and fall again until they drift up to sea and the next hit comes in. When you suppress feelings and prevent the natural cycle, the waves don't settle, the emotions get stuck and intensify. Instead of ignoring your feelings or trying to push them down, practice riding the waves. Notice when sadness is welling up and make space for the feelings to make their way through your body. Do this by taking deep belly breaths, imagining the waves rising and falling with each breath. If you would like to know more about Yatra Center's residential treatment program or their outpatient care program, visit yatracenter.com. That's yatracentre.com.
Okay?
Yeah, let's do that.
A mark of disgrace associated with a particular circumstance, quality, or person.
Yeah.
A mark of disgrace.
Doesn't that just wrap it up right there, right?
Right?
Yeah.
And I think of in America, in the South, they have a Southern way.
Yeah.
And it's very embedded in their cultural being of a gentleman is this, a gentlewoman is this. And if you don't fall into that, it's like you get a scarlet letter,
Yeah.
And the reality is nobody falls into that. They never really have. They just appear to do that. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Meanwhile, there's all this shit happening in behind that is creating so much turmoil that would be so easily attended to by simple, open, loving dialogue.
Right. And
Yeah.
that's it. Once it ceases to be our dirty little secret.
Well, because it really, stigma, you tell me
Yeah.
about how stigma is different than shame.
Right? There's nothing about it. No. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So what does shame need in order to flourish? 3 components. If you put it in a petri dish
Yeah.
and you add secrecy, silence, and judgment, shame will flourish.
Sounds like stigma to me.
Right.
100%.
Now,
Right.
if we correlate that into family systems
Yeah.
and how traditional family systems, especially like post-war nuclear family era, it is embedded in secrecy, silence, and judgment.
Absolutely.
And so when we apply that, we're really talking about the moral model. Now, addiction, mental health. So I put them together because they are. And when you look at any
without a shadow of a doubt, yeah.
Right.
I mean,
I mean, even
any
in the
modern
world-
way of thinking, right?
the political world is even going that way, where it's not. They don't use you don't use the word addiction anymore. We use substance use disorder.
Yeah.
You know, and so I used to be a director of mental health and substance use, MHSU. So they're together.
Yes, they are. Yes,
Right.
they are. I
And
know
so-
here in Alberta, the ministry is addiction and mental health, right? So that whole ministry has changed, right, at that level, right?
Yes,
So,
and but it used to always be separate, right?
yeah. Of
Now,
course.
the way that we have been programmed or socially informed or influenced is that they are different. If we even just look at like alcohol
Yeah.
and heroin, let's have a look at that. Socially, alcohol is accepted. So it's an acceptable thing, and it's actually reinforced over and over. You get a promotion, you drink. Someone dies, you drink. You have a wedding, you drink. It's Tuesday, you drink. It's Friday, you drink. You know what I mean? Everything is drink. And then like, and then all of a sudden, oh, he's an alcoholic. Wow, he must be morally defective. You know, and I'm like,
Yeah.
the entire tapestry has opened this gate for this to be such a thing.
Absolutely.
Now, and then I used to get guys that, like, come into my treatment floor and be like, no, I'm not like them. No, I'm an alcoholic, so I need to be treated differently. You know, and this is why I like the word overdose is gone from my vocabulary because it's a reinforcement of stigma.
Yeah.
That you and I'll give you the example that really changed my mind around this.
Okay.
Is you ever hear about an alcohol overdose?
No.
What do they call it?
Alcohol poisoning, right? Yeah.
So, in other
That's
words,
perfect. I can't believe. Yeah. I can't
other
believe I've
words,
never seen that. No.
by accident, I poisoned myself with alcohol.
Yes. Yeah.
But an overdose is like I took too much. It's some kind of like
Yeah.
you know what
that
I mean?
nuance is huge, though, right? It is. It's subtle.
It
but,
is.
But its connotation is massive, right?
And the
Without a doubt.
proper
Yeah.
vernacular these days is drug poisoning.
Yes. Right. So
Yeah, and we can't separate alcohol from drugs.
we can't. The only difference is legislation. Period.
Absolutely, and actually, there's a massive difference, and it goes the other way. Think about, okay, so I've done a lot of drugs in my life.
Yeah.
Now, alcohol, I get a hangover, I'm wiped out the entire day. I black out.
Yeah.
I do things I have no idea. All I know is I got broken knuckles and no pants on. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm like, where am I?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfectly fine. Now, cocaine.
Yeah.
Wake up the next day, still pretty, like don't really black out. I wake up the next day, maybe a little bit tinny, maybe a little bit slow in thought, but I'm not sleeping with all the curtains shut and the blinders over my ears because I got a headache you wouldn't believe. Heroin, throw up when you first time you use it, but really the next day you're fine unless you are past 18, unless you're of bodily dependence or physical dependence, and then you get dope sick.
Yeah.
But that takes 18 straight days of use in order for that to set in. Crystal meth, you don't really have a wicked hangover. You know what I mean? Like, the power of alcohol is so devastating to the body.
Yes.
And in comparison to all of the other drugs, it does way more damage. Yet,
without a doubt. Yes.
Without a doubt.
Yes.
Yet, because some racist legislation that came around in the early 1900s to suppress migrant workers made opium legal to suppress the Chinese workers after the railroad was finished.
Yeah.
Cocaine to suppress the African American workforce because they worked longer, harder, didn't take breaks, and worked for half as much money. And the same thing with marijuana or cannabis, and that was to target the culture of Mexicans.
Yeah.
So it was really about finding a new form of slavery. Just like they passed the 13th Amendment, after Lincoln was shot, but they passed the 13th Amendment to abolish slavery. But in the writing, it says if you commit a crime, you lose all your rights.
Yeah.
So they started putting people in jail for life for spitting on the street, African American people. And then what did they do? They went and worked at the plantation. Like, nothing changed.
Yeah, right.
And so like and I'm bringing this up because we need to look at where we're coming from to understand the trajectory of where we're going and how we need to alter that trajectory in order to find a way to have an equitable society.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So
circle back to stigma, and specifically what we wanted to do in this episode was maybe to the families, right? So
or loved ones.
Loved ones. Yeah, I'm careful. Okay, so how does it affect them, right? And that's to me is the real piss off, and it is to the individual as well, to the person who's suffering, right? But at least there's some choice there. But person that's suffering gets a break. Like I'll die on that hill. Yeah, my mother, I guarantee you, as much as she champions me and as much as support as she gives me, still to this day worries every single day.
Why wouldn't she?
Right? Yeah.
She's
right?
fucking earned that.
Yeah, damn right she has, right? No, she has, without a doubt, right? So people that like how stigma affects those people, to me, it's just so unfair. Just so unfair. There's somebody close to the show. We have to do a retake on an interview that I've already done with her. And I think I told you about this some time ago. She was helping her ex-husband, like she let him move in with her to get his shit together and whatever.
Yeah.
She couldn't tell any of her friends and family because they had all told her they would stop speaking to her if she did that. Again, we did talk about this, right?
Yeah.
And I think I've talked about it on the show as well. But just imagine you're being this person, this loving person who's trying to help somebody, and your family and your friends are threatening to ostracize you for doing just that, for being a loving person, right?
And who does that serve?
Sorry for the language, but that serves the person that is doing the threatening. That's it.
Exactly.
That is it. 100%. It has nothing to do with trying to do better by the person who's, the family member or the loved one, right?
I'd like to take that back again to the definition. A mark of disgrace.
Yes.
Disgrace to who?
Right. Yes. Yeah.
So many times I think that people pick the easy road because it serves them in their comfort level and not the one that they love.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all you need is somebody who's uninformed to co-sign that, and your decision is made.
Yeah. Right.
And so when we look at, we talked about shaming, secrets, judgment, and what was the other one? Silence.
Yeah.
So that also is really the definition of a closed family dynamic.
Yeah.
A closed family system is one that thrives on secrets, silence, and judgment.
Yeah.
Where you're going to have people, pretty much in that dynamic, it's hierarchical. You have the ringleader, the father, whoever that is at the top, who is probably, typically an abuser. You wouldn't have a closed system unless there were secrets to have.
Yeah, right.
Right.
And
then so then you have a whole bunch of unheard, unseen, unloved, and unlovable people dependent on that system. Stigma works the same way. It is what it does is it takes away our ability to have human connection. It takes away our ability to be heard, to be seen, to be loved, and feel lovable.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does.
And
Especially
it's usually
feel lovable, right?
Yeah. And it's usually like, the problem is that it is so ingrained in our social tapestry that the revolution of the love model has a hard time when it goes against the stubbornness of the moral model.
Yeah, it does.
And my mentor used to always tell me, like, it takes a community to create substance use disorder, and it takes a community to fix that substance use disorder. It is not an
The following is a
individual
national
issue.
emergency.
A new study out shows there may be gross underreporting of opioid-related deaths, meaning the
Canada's
opioid crisis may be
overdose
far
deaths
worse
have
than
been
initially
caused by
thought.
toxic
Midst of a
supply
national
of street
public
drugs.
health
Devastating effects on families and communities across this country.
One Canadian dies approximately every 53 minutes to overdose. That's 27 deaths every day and 837 deaths each month. That makes 405% more deaths to overdose than car accidents in 2022. Are you listening now? So who does this affect? Everyone from pro athletes to celebrities to business people and kids. This crisis affects us all, with 77% of overdoses happening in people's homes. So how did we get here?
These drugs were designed to ease pain, but their overuse has caused hundreds of thousands of Canadians to become addicted.
Most addictions begin with prescription opiates, but later shift to unregulated substances like heroin and fentanyl due to availability and cost. This is a huge problem.
The vast majority of overdose deaths are caused by a toxic street drug supply.
The National Overdose Response Service is a 24-hour phone line providing anonymous support for substance users. NORS will co-create safety plans, dispatch EMS, or contact someone to administer naloxone without involving EMS. Please don't use alone. If using in the USA, please call Never Use Alone
to
and
fix
download
that
the Brave
substance use
app.
disorder. It is not an individual issue that requires an individual solution. And that's like I think the greatest gift of the recovery communities is the word community.
Yep. And now we can take that back decades now, right? Community.
Yeah.
And really think, I would think, and I'm no expert in this, you know more than I do, but you go back to 12 steps and what that's done. And I mean, there's all sorts of conversations to be had around 12 steps, but the idea of community, right, in recovery, that's where that comes from, right?
And just like-minded issues, like
right.
Like
right.
So stigma leaves us feeling lonely lonely, not just alone, but lonely.
Yeah.
Stigma tells us that we are not enough. Stigma tells us that there's something wrong with us. It will never be better. Mm-hmm. Stigma also tells the loved one that they're not doing enough, or they're doing too much, or they're enabling, or they're not enabling, or there's just so much ambiguity to what the loved one.
There's a fire word for me, enabling, right? What is feeding a human being enabling them?
Well,
right.
So,
that pisses me off.
And
right? that's what that does, or answering the phone. That just
me too, man. But that's what I mean. That's not about helping. That's about helping yourself.
Yeah, right.
And so
and that's fine. Your boundaries, your choice, right? But let's not blame that on the person who's suffering an addiction. Let's own that for what that is, instead of villainizing somebody else to justify our own decisions. Right.
So I had a conversation last week with just an example of this. Of the great ambiguity, and it's not just like unclear or uncertain, it's also your heart and everything you have is tied in. Let's say it's your child, like everything you have is tied into this. Everything your entire life becomes about this person getting better who doesn't want help or can't seem to figure it out. And what do you do? And so she'd asked me, I let him in to have a shower. He's not allowed to stay at our house. At the end of his shower, he tried to hang out, and I told him, he can't be here. He's got to go. Am I a horrible person?
Oh.
And my response was absolutely, you did everything that you could do while maintaining a trustful, integral boundary that will pay off when the time comes.
Yeah. Yeah. You showed some heart, but you stuck to your boundary, and yeah, right.
Because if you say it's not like he's just like, you know what, you're an addict, you're out. It wasn't like that. This is a long period of time that she had to come to a boundary that she had to set for the sanity of herself and the rest of her family.
Absolutely, right.
And so for me, I'm like, that is a perfect example of using the love model in a way to support your loved one without having to really, what's the word? Well, no, decompose your own family or your own personal values or family values.
Right.
So you're still strengthening.
What a horrible thing to have to ask yourself. Am I a horrible person, right? So what that person is going through is plenty. We do not need any sort of outside shame or stigma put on top of that.
No.
Because that person is already, they're already seriously questioning their own, whatever, right?
Oh, yeah.
So... yeah, we don't need anybody adding to that. We just don't, right? And piss off with it, quite frankly. And it's a passionate subject for me. I just,
Well, it is, and because we need this enabler. I hate the term because most people don't understand it.
Yeah.
So I'll be clear about this. Enabling is taking away all the consequences somebody needs to be forced to look at themselves.
Yeah.
In other words, giving them $150 every day to smoke fentanyl in their basement.
Yeah. Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretending that there's not an issue there, even though there is one. Doing nothing is enabling.
Yes.
And none of those are for the substance use disorder person.
Yeah.
Those are all for the individual, so they can feel better.
Yeah.
Because can you imagine you telling your child you can't be here?
Yeah. No, I can't. I can't.
Knowing that you're putting them out on the street.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Like, wow, what a difficult spot.
Yeah.
And so, but that's not the stigma part. That's beyond this. That's an evolved sense beyond the traditional moral model and the stigma.
Mm-hmm.
Now, on the other side, it's like, well, the other thing is my husband wants nothing to do with him. Has written him off. Doesn't even pretend like he's alive.
Yeah.
And so now you're in this space between wanting this, your child to get better, and the almost to me, it's a bully energy of no, that's not going to happen. No, he's just a junkie.
Yeah.
And so that's a shitty spot to be in. And so, and where do you go? Who do you call? What do you do? Where's the resources?
Yeah. Well, and that's what we're seriously lacking in that, right?
Okay,
and as I've often said, raw minimum, 10 people for every person that suffers in addiction are in that fight, right? And the scarce as resources are, 90% of those resources are going to 10% of the people affected, and that is the person suffering, right?
Yeah.
So,
And,
those are all just, whatever, anecdotal numbers for sure, but.
Well, but there are things to look at. That's for damn sure.
Yeah.
And so, I think when we look at, I think we have to ask ourselves, first of all, I want to get a sense, I want to match what stigma is to how I feel. Remember we talked about in our emotional intelligence lexicon series, we talked about how to take these things and then match them to our feelings so that we are not overwhelmed by that and we can understand it. So when I've done this, I've taken the word stigma, and what do you know? It sure matches the shame feeling.
Yeah.
And so when I know that shame feeling's here, I know, okay, no, this is not the road or the route that I want to be on, and I want to start looking beyond what I think I know, because all I know really is the stigma effect. I mean, I remember when I first like went into recovery like 150 years ago, and I called my grandma, who's God rest her soul, it's long past now, and I remember her telling me that, oh, I heard you got the cure.
When you told me that, it was like, are you serious? Like, does she mean it? Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But I mean, that's where she came from.
But you know what's funny is that's kind of an enlightened view, because at least then she views it as not a moral failing, right? That there is something to cure. So yeah, at that point, 150 years ago, whatever, that's an enlightened view, right? As messed up as that is, right?
But she's a product of the agriculture industry. I mean, she came from North Dakota with my grandpa, who was from Illinois, and took free land in the Depression to be farmers in Canada. That's how I ended up here. I would have been American.
Yeah, right.
So I mean, and a lot of that comes back to that is like, we just get so many of the old school thinking, and like it is so not helpful. I mean, and if you go, I don't know, like I go look on the threads about addiction, and we have a bit of a population here in Mission that, and a lot of the comments are really old school, like we should all just ship them off to an island where they can fend for themselves, or like stop spending taxpayers' money and all this crap that makes me so mad. My wife gets so fired up about it and just starts lighting them up on Facebook.
Oh, she's one of those, is she?
Well,
yeah, good.
Is,
I'm glad somebody's taking the time to do it. Yeah.
She is definitely, she's an outreach extraordinaire, and her ability to connect with our demographic is something else. But anyways, so having said that, I think there's so much more to be said about this issue. I just like I know we're hitting a mark here. We got to get to the mailbag, but here's what I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
If you have something you're not clear about, reach out to any one of us.
Absolutely.
On this show. We have a wealth of experience and knowledge, especially around open family systems, around the love model opposed to the stigma model, the moral model, and probably have some good insight as to what you're going through and some ways to navigate this with a personal touch. I am more than happy to help in any way I can, speaking for myself, and I'm sure I can't speak for everyone on the show, but I've got a pretty good idea that everybody's in the same boat as me. I mean,
we're all here for the same reason, right?
We're all eating craft dinner
myself,
and doing, we're all eating craft dinner and doing podcasts to try to help people. I mean,
I'm only 346 days into the whole thing right now, but hey, all this shit I talk about not counting days. We're 10 days off, man. We're 10 days off from a year.
Hey, man, listen.
Right? Right? Like,
you know what? Yeah. I don't count days because I've been at this for 100 million years.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I think I told you, like, my first 1 year cake, everyone was there. My fourth 1 year cake, I didn't even tell anybody.
Right. Yeah, and I'm not getting a cake. I don't plan on doing anything close to that, but it'll be a weekend ramble actually, so that's exciting, right?
Oh, good.
That one will
good,
be. Yeah, right. So yeah.
Well, maybe I can get in on that.
That'd be cool. That'd be really cool. I've actually invited KTA back for that one as well. If he could come on, so we'll see if he's available or not. But
let me know. I to tell you the truth, I think
who I really got to invite for that one? Mom.
Yeah, definitely. However, if you wanted to, let's look at this more. I don't think we're done with stigma.
We're not done with stigma. I think I see the beginning of a series. If you're in for that,
I think so. We just need to I need to brain map a little bit on it, but I did want to do a series on family and loved ones.
Well, and this affects them just as much. So, maybe we do this now and then it move into a family and loved ones next and kind of.
Yeah, or maybe it's a 6-part series with 3 of them being about stigma.
Here's the thing, man. It's our show. We can do whatever the hell we want, right? So, yeah.
I think, just spitballing here, I think there's some stuff to be said about CSA. Childhood sexual abuse. That is very prominent in my substance use disorder clientele.
Yep.
And so, again, stigma falls deeply into that and is a big barrier for people being able to talk about it.
And I think those of us that are a little more in tune with what's happening, mental health and addiction are the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Mental health, though, I feel like we've come a long way in the stigma. We still have a long way to go, but we've come a long way to addressing that, right? From where we were, say, 20 years ago even, right?
So
Remember
I agree,
when we were
disagree.
kids. You know,
it's not happening fast enough, in my opinion.
Fair enough.
In my lifetime,
you
didn't go see a counselor. You got what you see to shrink.
Yeah, right.
You know,
remember
like
Pinoca. Remember, we talked about this once before on the show, right? That was an insult. It was a blatant insult. Oh, you got to go to Pinoca, right? We used to joke about that as kids all the time. And for the listeners, Pinoca is a city where there is a psychiatric ward of sizable psychiatric ward here in Alberta, right? But
my dad used to call it the bean plant.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So but I think we've come a long way. Again, we have a long way to go, without a doubt. Right?
We do.
And
Yeah.
I wouldn't deny that, but we have to even catch up to what little progress has been that way
honestly,
with substance use disorder.
This is how it's going to change.
Yeah.
What we're doing, people like us.
Yep.
And hopefully one of these days we'll get to legislation and start making some real laws that help our citizens instead of help the 1%, which I believe is what's happening right now. Yeah. There's a massive business around the war on drugs that if everyone knows it's a devastating failure, the war on drugs. Everyone knows, everybody on this planet knows that.
Right.
Yep. Why is it still here? Because it's a $60 billion a year industry. That's why.
Absolutely. Right. You get big pharma. There's a whole new series right there. Right. So,
and I could go for days on passion.
I almost regret saying
hatred. My God. You need to watch that show. Michael Keaton. It's called Dope Sick.
Dope Sick. I can't believe I haven't seen that.
So good.
What network is that on?
I think it might have been on Apple, maybe.
Oh, that'd be why. Yeah, okay. Hey guys, I hate to interrupt, but I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't tell you to check out the swag shop on our website. That's www.a2apodcast.com/swag. We've got all sorts of new hoodies, t-shirts, tank tops, anything you can think of, really good. And if we don't have what you're looking for, just drop me a line. Customization is absolutely free. And you can DM me on any of the social medias or email me at ashleswellspodcast@gmail.com. Check it out. We love to see people wearing our swag, and it helps get the message out. Thanks, guys. Now back to the show.
It's so good, dude. And it's like, because I lived that era. Like, I was doing Oxy 80s, like, the Pez thinking it was fine because the doctor prescribed it. Like nodding out at my computer at work. And
it's on Hulu.
And it's Hulu. Okay, I can name about 15 of my good friends that have went out to the oil field, fell off a rig, got put on OxyContin. Then the copyright ran out. They went to heroin and end up dying over fentanyl or heroin overdose.
Right. Then that's very much in our young adult lifetime is when all of that became like
and so
this huge
this
reality,
show
right?
Is like I was there. Everything that happens in the show, I remember it all.
Yep.
And then and Michael Keaton is this one scene. Man, it's like he's finally gets into treatment and is finally doing well. And hit the rep that talked him into selling OxyContin. He was a doctor. Comes to visit him to apologize profusely. He didn't know, and he was told all this thing. And at the end of it all, he goes, "Hey, do you got any in your car?" And I was just like, "No."
Oh, wow.
But that's it. That's how, like, it's so real.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Don't tell us how that question ended, because right. But
I gotta. There's another good one with Steve Carroll. I think my son or something like that. Heartbreaking, but a really good, really honest depiction of.
I think I've seen this one. Yeah.
Really good.
Yeah.
And then and Painkillers is the new one on Netflix. That's really
on
good.
Netflix, which is fantastic, right? Documents that whole series of events, right?
And
The Pharmacist as well is another one that is
excellent documentary. Yeah,
right. Isn't that something else? Like yeah.
And like,
man.
dude, it's fucking crazy. Like, and that's all real. That's what's happening, and all of that embodies how stigma has driven us to where we are, along with poor policy and mostly, I think, like El Chapo and like, so like what Purdue Pharmacy did was when he created, and the Sacklers created a whole new clientele for when El Chapo escaped prison and got out and was like, oh shit.
I guess so, eh? Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And hey, why do you think fentanyl's here?
Yeah.
You don't have to
Yeah.
import it. You can make it.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. The
Yeah.
precursors to import, and then the rest is, yeah.
Yeah, it's fucked up. Anyway, sorry for the language.
Well, I think when it comes to fentanyl, there's that's definitely a context. So,
Hey everyone, this is Ryan Bathgate from Kaleidoscope Wednesdays. I wanted to bring a public service announcement to you today about Narcan, or also known as naloxone. These kits have saved so many lives over the years. I can attest for that. Being in the industry for so long, I can tell you since we've had the opioid crisis declared in 2016, it has saved thousands of lives, and I've watched it personally save hundreds of lives. These kits are small, easy to use. You can keep them in your glove box or in a cupboard in your home, and you never know when somebody's going to need them. If you have a hard time finding a Narcan kit in your area, just email us here at ashestooawesomepodcast@gmail.com. Throw Narcan in the subject line, tell us where you are, and we'll do the legwork to find that for you. If you wanted to send me a question for my Kaleidoscope Wednesdays, again, email ashestooawesomepodcast@gmail.com. We will read that question on air, and I'll do my best to answer it in a comprehensive way. That's all I have for now, and we'll go back to the show. Thanks for listening.
let's get a couple mailbag questions in, right? You had one sent directly to you. If you want to read that, or did you send it to me? I don't think you did.
You know what? We can't do that one today because I don't have a.
Okay.
I don't have I don't have anything. Oh, I lied.
You got permission?
I can read it.
Okay. Yeah, if you want to just read it out directly instead of me reading it to you, that works okay. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to leave out a little bit of personal stuff here. So this is from Bodie from Surrey.
Okay.
And so he says, I've been with someone for about a year. I met her at a treatment center that they were both at, and ended up moving in together. About 5 days, she relapsed, and I had to get her out. So my
5 days ago?
5 days into living together.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
My question is, I'm very hurt and I'm very upset, but should I let her go and move on, or should I stick beside her and fight with her? I love her with absolutely everything. I thought she was an amazing woman and did a lot for me. I need to watch out for her as well, but she's still young, and I don't know if she's exactly ready. How do you deal with someone in a relationship that is still using, but I'm not? I just took blank. A nice amount of time. But I want to be there for at the same time. She's still out there and still plans on using.
Still plans on using.
Yeah.
I think that. I'm sorry.
So my first thought is, you can't make someone ready.
No, I think that's the most significant part of that question is she still plans on using. So,
right. And so,
right.
What I would say to that, Bodie, is I think this is a point where we need to understand for ourselves what it means to love from afar.
Yeah.
And to have firm boundaries, still be supportive, still answer phone calls or still make phone calls, still text message, still let them know that you care.
Yeah.
But setting the boundaries of, those enabling things, and I would be constantly reaffirming that when you're ready, I'm here.
Yeah.
And I'll drop everything in this world to be there, but not until you're ready.
Protecting your own recovery is paramount. Right?
I agree, and I think that to stay in that, Bodie, and walk with her while she's not ready, I think is just a ticking time bomb for your own demise.
Yeah, right.
In my opinion.
So,
but if she is ready, then I say You just walk with them. You
Yeah.
love them. Do
Guns
everything you
a-blazing,
can.
right? Yeah.
But again, boundaries are essential.
Yes. Yeah. Without a doubt. Right. Without a doubt.
Yeah. So I hope that answers.
Okay.
And then he also said he thanks the network and how much he's been inspired by our clips and our videos and our shows.
Thank you, Bodie. Thank you very much for that. Right. Let's get into one here about you just about you, right? Marie in Edmonton says, in your opinion, what are the quality or skills that make a successful and effective counselor? A little bit of, see how you do with some humility, but at the same time having a, reality in there. And because let's be honest, you are an effective, therapist or counselor. So, right. Yeah.
Okay. So in my opinion, there's it's important to be educated.
Yeah.
It's important to be trained properly. I think mentorship is a huge part of that. I think you only learn so much in the textbook and in school, but having somebody that is well established, I think is extremely important. I think you also need to have some introspection before going into this. And I've seen too many times people that want to be counselors who just aren't and never will be. And they get all the education and they still end up being, what I hear a lot of is, I went and saw this counselor and it was just, everything was from a textbook and all they did was agree with me. Yeah. And so I think it's important to have a certain amount of and I use this word, but I don't know how else to explain it. There's a certain toughness that you need to work in this industry. And it's not a physical toughness or even a mental toughness, but it's almost an emotional toughness and an ability to learn how to oscillate between objective and then in it or subjective with the individual.
Right. And what a balance that must be to hold.
And it's a skill that you just learn over time. But there's a level of intuition.
Dr. Lisa talks quite a bit about that as well, right? About,
she because she has it and she knows it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think that you have to have an understanding that you're there for them, not you. We don't give advice. We make suggestions. What else is there? As far as quality goes, like empathy is essential. Active listening is essential. You have to be able to listen without agenda. And I always say, trust yourself, trust the client, and trust the process. And if you can learn how to do those things, then you have a good foundation of where to go from. But also and then I guess the other thing I'll say is pick a discipline, pick a modality, and live within the tenets of that modality. I say that because you'll never be lost if you understand what model you're working from. And it was one of the big things when I started is I'd have clients or counselors that I was developing who didn't have a good understanding of the model they worked out of. And what would happen is they would freeze in session and not know what to do. But if you understand your discipline, then you always have something to go back to. I'm an existentialist, so I always go back to humanism. I'm never lost.
Yep.
I'm a phenomenologist, so I always go back to consciousness, so I'm never lost. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. Absolutely. Right. Yeah. Which you've spoken to before. It's kind of the same thing as living within your values, right?
Yeah.
So you're never lost if you, right. All right. These are personal questions today, which is as opposed to what I would classify as advice questions, I guess, right?
Yeah, I kind of like that, though. It's a nice break.
Yeah, I know you do. Yeah, there's some ego in there too, right? So,
yeah.
Let's go Joanne from Thunder Bay, Ontario. Could you explain the significance of unpacking the past to influence the presence in the therapeutic process?
Okay, I don't spend a lot of time in the past. I'm much more gestalty like that. In that
Gestalty, explain that.
Gestalt is it's a model of therapy that is about the presence, and it's about psychosomatic connection. It's about what's happening in the now.
Okay.
And how we use that to go forward. It actually means to be complete or whole. It's a German word for that.
Okay.
And so, having said that, this is why like the word recovery doesn't work well for me, because I don't believe we recover to anything we add on to what already exists from a Gestalt lens, right?
Okay.
So all of our experiences are worth something. So when we look at the past, we're just looking at data. And so I always say our past is our archive. It's our library. It's a place that we go to get information about our lives that might help us in a situation for the now that'll set us up for a consequence for tomorrow. And in order to go into that archive or library, we need to leave our emotions at the door. So it's a very data collection, left side of the brain, just getting information. We bring that out of the library, we apply it to our now, we can add some emotion, and then propel us into what future we're writing for ourselves. So unpacking the past, like, okay, when I specifically like abuse, so I'll go into abuse, and what I'll do is I'll take whatever that abuse might be and then correlate it into what the problem is now. And see how those fit, and usually, like, boom, people are like, oh my God, like my mother always talked down to me, and I can't seem to hold a relationship because people think I'm an asshole. And it's like, well, does it make sense that maybe you weren't born, or you didn't foster intrinsic resource like self-esteem and self-worth because it was depleted by that relationship, and that relationship has never been processed, so now it's showing up in all your relationships, specifically if it's a mother, specifically with women, or father, specifically with other men, you know what I mean? And so or we might look at how the history has created blind spots in our day. So I only unpack the past as it's relevant to the future, and as it's relevant to now and our unwritten future. Yeah, I don't know if that makes sense. So I just think I think it's too much to be living in that over and over and over again.
Fair enough.
Just take the data and apply it. Data, it's not. We depersonalize it because
that's the perfect answer. Yeah.
Well, here's the reason. My past I believe is mostly fictional because it's only the degree or lens of the reality I was living in based on the influences I had at the time. So if I think about my experience as a 7-year-old, getting in a fight in the schoolyard, and how thinking that everything was the other person's fault. Well, now I'm 45 and look at it and go, man, you know what? I really picked that fight. You know what I mean? So in order to look at it, so basically that 1 degree of reality is missing 359 degrees surrounding it. You know what I mean? So it's
absolutely I do.
Our history of our memory lacks integrity, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, we know that. So okay. We got time for one more?
Sure.
They're all in the same kind of vernacular today. This is interesting. All right. Jim in Toronto. There's a lot of Canadian questions today. How do you incorporate clients' cultures and values into your counseling practice? Why is it so important to consider these factors? That's interesting, eh? Like that's kind of out of left field at you. So let's see how you do with that one. Yeah.
Okay. So how I incorporate a client's cultures and values.
I would specifically, I look at cultures there and go, if you had whatever, somebody from a deeply religious that is deeply religious, or somebody that is from another part of the world, right? Yeah.
So what I think I try to do is humanize that beyond the culture and practice. Like we are, there's cultures everywhere that are all different, but what isn't different is the human beings within them. And so really, when I hear culture, I hear a lack of choice, which I hear oppression. So, if and that's not always the case, but that's the way I want to go at it. This is like, as a human being, is this actually what you believe, or is this what you're told to believe?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if it's what you believe, then I'll take that as a value and I'll add it into what we're doing and try to mold our direction or our trajectory in a way that's in line with that value. Or the other way, where we'll abandon that as not actually my belief, but a belief that was put upon me, which is usually shame-based, and try to move that away from where we're going. And so, you know, like,
well said, man. Really well said. I got to give you a lot of credit to that one, because that's that's beautifully said. Yeah, absolutely.
And I think, look at Thanksgiving, for example. Christmas.
Yeah.
Christmas is not something I believe in.
Yeah.
However, I practice it.
Yeah.
And the reason I practice it is because I believe in the values that Christmas brings along, about togetherness, about family, about rest, relaxation, you know, all the things that aren't the commercial elements.
Yeah.
You know, and so I take those values and then we celebrate Christmas in a way that's about family and togetherness and not about you know, the birth of Christ, which is not where, you know, I'm not going to ruffle any feathers, but I just don't. Yeah. I'm not a Christian.
Yeah. Of course.
So yeah.
Beautifully said.
And
I think you answered that one perfectly already. I don't think you need to unpack it anymore. Yeah.
Okay.
And we're getting to that point. So we're getting to my favorite part of the show, which is the Daily Gratitudes.
Today's Daily Gratitudes are brought to you by Revolution Recovery, helping men recover and become their best selves through support and treatment. They've been there and they understand.
What you got for us today, Ryan?
I'm grateful for health. You know,
a few days of not having it,
man. Like, and I'm grateful for the cycle of life, especially the early parts where youth is wasted on the young, and that's exactly what I am. So when I get sick, all of the ailments when I get the flu specifically, all the ailments of my stupidity in the past, being, you know, head first into everything, first guy jumping off the cliff, you know, all that stuff is really like my back, my knees, my shoulders, my elbows, my thumb, you know, all these, just like 3 days of absolute pain, feeling like flu. I'm 95 years old with this flu. Now, having said that, I am super grateful for my beautiful wife and her probably annoyance, but her ability to take care of 3 children instead of just 2 for 3 days in a row.
That commercial with the Pam.
Yeah. Pam. Yeah, that's me, yeah. And then, you know what, I'm gonna give a shout out to a good friend of mine that came and visited on the weekend.
Okay.
My friend Rachel Weaver.
Okay.
Yeah, she came and hung out with the family, and we had a nice little Thanksgiving, even though I was sick for half of it. But and she is a avid listener of the show and is always quick to give me some feedback about how I messed something up or didn't do something right. But no, her critical lens is really good, and she's very helpful, and I'm really grateful for her.
I've seen her following me on Instagram now as well, following the show. So
yeah.
Right.
She's one of the ones like, "Where's the show?"
Yeah.
She's like, "I went to go have a bath and listen to the show, and all I got was a TikTok reel." Like, my baths are longer than 1 minute, you know.
Well, thank you for paying attention, Rachel, and here you go. Right, so we're back on track now, right? So, and as the next month or so goes, we're going to have to try and figure out a schedule to make sure that we are, as you know, I've got this move to Thailand coming up, so you know, I'm going to have to try and get ahead of the schedule, I guess, right, to make everything work, right?
We've been trying to do that for a long time, but yeah.
You know, well, now we're going to actually, because we've been trying to do that for a long time too. So anyway,
we'll figure it out.
Yeah. For myself, very thankful for so much right now. So much. My mom, again, my family for stepping up and, you know, she's helping me get to Thailand. Mike in Thailand for helping me, you know, with that scholarship. That is not an inexpensive thing, right? Mm-hmm. So that's a pretty big deal. It's a pretty big deal. Dr. Lisa and her family for Thanksgiving supper. what an honor that was to sit at that table with those folks, because they are
cool. Yeah.
They're amazing people, right? They really are. So for that, I'm very, very grateful. And of course, I'm very grateful to all of you, all your listeners, watchers, and supporters, right? If you guys are doing, please keep doing it. If you see us on the socials, please or please drop a like, comment, or share. If you go to the website, you can leave a voice message. There is a button to leave a voice message on the website. So there's that, right? Which I keep forgetting to talk about, and it's kind of cool. So please
Very
do,
cool.
and I will be more than happy to play them as they come in. Anytime you do any one of these things, you're getting me a little bit closer to living my best life. And of course, my best life would be to make a humble living spreading the message. The message is this: if you're in active addiction right now, today could be the day. Today could be the day that you start that lifelong journey. Reach out to a friend, reach out to a family member, call into detox, go to a meeting, do whatever the hell it is you need to do to get that journey started, because it is so much better than the alternative. And if you have a loved one who's suffering in addiction right now, just taking the time to listen to our show, if you could just take another minute out of your day and text that person, let them know they're loved. Use the words.
You are loved.
That little glimmer of hope could just be the thing that brings it back.
My body's getting cold, my life is running low. Feel me falling, my life is running out. I pray I make it now, but if I don't, it will be okay. I'll find you another day, and I'm not scared to go. It will be okay. I'll find you another way, and I'm not scared to go, because when I die, I'll be happier. Be a ladybug soaring through the sky. Please search for me. Please find me. So please don't cry when I land on your arms. Spread my wings and fly. So please don't cry. Spread my wings and fly.